want to talk about something that it's just been in my heart, and I was so happy when Pastor Aaron Cody said that. I think it was Pastor Aaron who had said they had like this meeting before this ever started with Revive, and they were just asking everyone in the staff, what word they got from God. And I think it was Pastor Aaron who had this word, specific word that said, taste and see. And that's been something that, if you can ask Carolina, it's been something that's been on my heart for a long time. There's actually a song, Psalms 34 from Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir. If you haven't heard it, you should hear it. It'll bless your heart. But it's been in my heart, just in general, just taste and see, that the Lord is good. And so tonight's title is nothing weird. It's just try it and let me know. I want to present something tonight for you to try. And it's something that I don't want you to take my word for it. I want you to try it tonight. Look at your neighbor and say, I'm going to try it tonight. And you don't even know what you're going to try, but just say it in faith. I'm going to try it tonight. Try and let me know. So I've realized that my eating habits have changed since I'm like a kid to now. They've changed. When I was a kid, I would always dream of when I was going to become an adult, what I would eat, right? And what would be in my fridge. So when I was a kid, people would ask me, what would be in your fridge? I was like, well, obviously Dr. Pepper all the time. And when there's no Dr. Pepper, it's because it's root beer month. And if there's no root beer, there's going to be Coke, and there's going to be Swiss rolls, and there's going to be Krispy Kremes, and there's going to be it's going to be amazing. It's going to be the best thing ever. And I realized things had changed because last week when I opened our refrigerator, I didn't see Swiss rolls. I didn't see Krispy Kreme donuts. What I saw was hummus. I live in a house, but don't get me wrong, I love it. But I live in a house that has hummus. What we do now, we make our own avocado dip, right? This is what my life is now. When we want dessert, we'll blend some bananas and put natural cacao in there and eat it. It's delicious, but it's not what I expected. And I was like, well, what has become of my life now? I will dip my Captain Crunch in almond milk. It's different now. And it's not like the 90-calorie sweetened vanilla almond milk. It's the 30-calorie unsweetened almond milk, right? But don't get me wrong, I love this. This has been amazing. So I was wondering last week, how did I get here? My life, it wasn't aimed towards this, but for some reason, I eat hummus now, and I eat avocado, our own avocado dip, and I have almond milk. It's how did I get here? And then I can't really pinpoint a specific day that brought me to this moment, but I knew it started by trying it. And the more I tried it, the more Carolina would bring it and serve and all these things, the more I started to like it. And then as I was thinking these things, God just reminded me of this verse in Psalms 34, verse 8, where it says, taste and see. It's the New Living Translation. It says, taste and see that the Lord is good. Oh, the joys of those who take refuge in him. Now, there's a story behind this specific chapter in the Bible. And it's that David, and you can actually read it. It's in 1 Samuel, chapters 22 to chapters 26. We're not going to read it all. But what happened is David, he wasn't king yet. He was being persecuted by Saul, King Saul. So he had to run. So he decides to run to this other kingdom. And the name of the king in this kingdom is the King Ashish. I think that's how you say Achish or Ashish or something. The point is, he goes to this kingdom, and the king gets scared too, and he wants to kill David. So he acts crazy. This is the real story. He acts crazy to the point where the king is like, oh, he's not a threat. Let's just kick him out of the kingdom. And so he doesn't know where to go. There's one king that wants to kill him. There's another king that wants to kill him. So he decides to go into this cave. And then the Bible says, if you read it, it says in 1 Samuel 22, verse 2, that other people started joining him in this cave. And it says that it was men that were in debt or in trouble until he had about 400 guys in this cave. And they were all like the rejects from their different cities, from their different kingdoms. And they all came into this cave and they found David. And David was in problems too. And now this is the context of this chapter. And so it's in these circumstances that he starts singing in the middle of the cave. I like something about David is that when David had nothing else to give, he would always give God worship, right? When there was nothing else in his life, he could still worship God. And so I can imagine, you're in this cave with 400 guys and they all have problems. And usually when a person has problems, he likes to talk about them, right? It's like, oh, you don't know what happened to me in the bank, and you don't know what happened. Well, I have this illness, or why did you get kicked out? Well, I got kicked out because, so there's 400 people that start talking, and in the middle of all of this, David just decides to sing. And I like it because he starts, and it says, hey, I don't know about you guys, but I will praise the Lord. It says in Psalms 34, verse 1, it says, I will praise the Lord at all times, and I will constantly speak his praises. I will boast only in the Lord, and let all who are helpless take heart. Come, let us tell of the Lord's greatness. Let us exalt his name together. So the first thing he says is like, guys, I'm not going to talk about my problems right now. I'm just going to fill my mouth with his praises of what he's done already in my life. And then he makes an invitation, which I'm making tonight too. It's like, hey guys, let's just start talking about how good he has already been. Let's just start exalting his name together. How about we forget our problems for a bit and start remembering all the promises he has already done in our lives? How about we just forget a little bit about the problem that's in front of us and start thinking about the God that's around us, right? That's inside of us. Let's just take a little minute and let's just praise him. So I like what a commentator said about this passage. It's the commentator Boyce, B-O-I-C-E, says he may have been hiding in a dismal cave, but this psalm tells us that in his heart, he was hiding in the Lord. I like that about David. It doesn't matter what was like surrounding him. It mattered who was with him at the moment. And so he had enough reason to praise, even in a terrible time. Like, it's not cool when the whole kingdom wants to kill you. And it's not cool when there's two kingdoms that want to kill you, right? Like, it's not something that you want to praise about. But he said, I'm not going to talk about all these bad problems, or I'm not even going to boast about the things that have happened in my life, because I know it has been him. So it says, how powerful it is to know this, that one, we can take refuge in our God no matter where we are. This is something that David had. He took refuge in God no matter where he was. And then he goes on to say that he won't boast in himself, but he would only boast in God, not in his own ability. Not whether it was luck, because sometimes it happens, God will provide, God will do something, and then when you're at your next problem, then you start thinking, I think it's one of like the devil's lies. He starts making you look back, and it's like, well, that was just luck, right? I mean, this is a real problem. Like, okay, maybe you got healed, but it's like 1 in a million, and that was you, but your luck is over. Like, it's not gonna happen twice. You can't be healed more than once, or God's not gonna take you out of that debt. He already took you out of the other debt. So it's always the same lie. And David said, well, I'm not going to boast. I'm not even going to think it was my luck or anything. I'm only going to talk about how good he has been. And then he tells everyone, he's like, hey guys, let's start talking about how good God is. How good God is to us. Let us make him big. That's what it means when he said, let us exalt his name together. To exalt God is to make him big. And I've always meditated on, how do you make someone who's like the biggest person in the universe, in the history, how do you make him bigger? You can't make God big. So what God put in my heart is the only way to make God bigger is to get closer to him. See, it's not that God gets bigger, it's just that you get closer. And as you get closer, you start to see how big he really is. See, I want to invite you tonight to exalt his name, to make him big. And the way you make God big is you get closer to him. And the moment you realize how big he is, you start understanding that your problems aren't really that big and that he can take care of these problems as well. And when that happens, I believe peace starts setting in our hearts, joy starts being downloaded into our lives, and we can live that peaceful life that he had promised us. So when you magnify God, you start drawing closer to him. So he says, hey guys, I'm going to tell you my story. This is David saying, I'm going to tell you my story. I sought the Lord and he heard me and he delivered me from all my fears. So I want to tell my story. Because see, the first 5 months of this year, you can ask Carolina, were probably one of the hardest months of our lives financially. You know, stuff happens in life, and stuff happened in our life. And for a moment there, we were really stressed out. We had a lot of like financial issues. All our savings disappeared in like 1 minute. Like it was intense. Like it just was gone. And so like we were crying, it was all these problems. And then after this happened, you know, we knew we had to go to the States. And so we're like, God, you know, I mean, not only do we have pesos, but they have dollars in the States. It's more expensive than the peso, right? So like, how are we going to do, like if all our pesos are gone, you know, where are we going to get dollars from? And God was really good to us, and he sent us out blessed from Bogota. Again, in 2 weeks, we recuperated like most of our savings, and it was amazing. But then the next thing happened was the exchange rate had never been, like it was historical. Like it was the highest exchange rate ever. So what meant probably a year's worth of like savings and stuff was translated into like 2 months of U.S. living. And so I was like, Jesus, you know, what is happening? And then when we got here, we needed a car, because in Colombia, you really don't need a car. You can take a bus, you can take a taxi, you can walk, take a bike, but here everything is just bigger. And it's Texas, so it's even more. You know, it's like, you know, what are we going to do? So we had 10 days to find a car. And in those 10 days, we were looking on like Carfax.com and cheapcars.com and cheapercars.com and cheaperthanthosecars.com, right? And like, what are we going to find? And we would go to these places and we were like, no, not that car. You know, it needs at least 4 wheels. And like, we keep looking for these cars. And then I think it was like the second to last day or the last day of our car rental. I was praying that morning. I got up early and I was praying, and God gave me Daniel 2:22, where it says, He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what lies in darkness, and light dwells with Him. So I was like, well, God, I don't know if you're saying this for anything specific, but I'm going to take it for my car. And I was like, you know where our car is. And so that morning, I got into, like, I don't know where in the internet I was, but I found the car. And so I showed it to Carolina. I was like, hey, this looks like a perfect car. It fits our budget, you know, fits what we like. It's good, like it could work. You know, we could like do road trips with it and go do what we have to do. So we went to this place. And when we got to this place, this car dealership, we were there and we're like, this is probably not it, because the cars were really nice. There was like Maseratis. There was, I'm not really good with cars, but there was Maseratis, and there was like, that's all I remember. There's just like really fancy cars. So we go, and this guy comes out and is like, yeah, you guys looking for something? I was like, so like, I think we printed it or something. We printed it, the paper. It's like, this website says you guys have this car. So he took a glance at that car and he was like, we don't sell these things here. And I was like, no, but the website says you guys, like, can you just go and look? He's like, oh, I'm going to go look, but I've been here for a while. I don't know this car's not here. So he went and he came back and he said, yep, I told you, this car's not here. And for some reason, I just didn't want to budge. So I was like, no, I think you have to go look again. Okay, go look again, because this website said that you guys had this car, and I called and they said, yeah, that you're supposed to go look again. So he went again, came back, and he's like, I don't know, would you guys like a Maserati? Because like, we have a Maserati. I was like, no, this car, it says it's right here. So he went 3 times, and the third time he came back. He was like, guys, I don't know why we have this car, but we have this car. And I was like, and do you have the price? Because I'm good with the car, but I needed the same price that we found. And he was like, that is the price. And then he says something. He says, but if I would have known we had this car, I would have bought it for my daughter. I was like, no, you better pray for your own car. I already bought this, like, this is my car. We prayed for this car. It's all, and like in that moment, we swiped, it was ours. Like, I was like, no, I don't play games with these things. So we got in our car and we're like praising God. And it's like, yeah, we found the car. And then the next thing was, well, we need a place to live. We need a place to stay. So we had a car. So like, I was like, well, like you could sleep here and I could like see if it could work. But, and I don't think you understand, but we've never lived in the States before, right? And so we have like no Social Security, we have no credit score. Like it's not just easy to go into any place and get an apartment. And that's what happened a lot of times. We would go into apartments and they're like, great, you guys look like wonderful people. I was like, we are, but we don't have a credit score. And they're like, well, you can't apply, you can't do anything. And it was back at the time where we had to come to camp meeting. So we found an apartment that we really liked. And that person said, like, hey, it's great, but you guys have no credit score. You guys have no Social Security and stuff. Like, I don't know how you can do it. I was like, well, can we apply? And it's like, well, you could like apply, but if you don't have these things, you're not going to get into the apartment. I was like, for some reason, we were talking, we were praying, and we're like, let's just apply. And so we applied. We came to camp meeting. I was dancing and shouting every night for that apartment, right? Like, every night I was like, I'm just going to, act like it was true, all these things. How would you act? I was like, I would be happy, I had to like dance and shout. And I remember while we were here, God gave me Psalms 5, verse 12. It says, for you, O Lord, will bless the righteous, and with favor you will surround him as with a shield. I was like, God, you gave us favor, and your word says we have favor. So when we left, I think it was the day of, that we were leaving here. We got I think it was an email first. We got an email that said, hey, you guys have been approved. You guys get the apartment. So I didn't believe it. At the moment, I was like, but we don't have Social Security. Like how? And so I called. I was like, and proof of income. We didn't have proof of income, Social Security, and all these things like credit scores, everything. So I called him. I was like, hey, I just want to make sure this is true, the email that we got. And so the guy, I looked, I was like, yeah, you guys got the apartment, congratulations, everything. So I said like, yeah, but, we have no proof of income and no Social Security. And Caroline was like, hang up. Like, don't even tell, like, we got it. Like, just hang up. So these two things that seemed impossible for us, it happened. So I was reminded, and I've continually been reminded of Psalm 34, how David was in a rough spot. And he says, like, guys, I will bless the Lord at all times, and his praises shall continually be in my mouth. And it's not only about me, but it's like, hey, guys, how about we exalt the Lord together? I'm going to tell you my story. My story is I called upon the Lord, and he answered me. And my story as John David is I called upon the Lord, and he still answers today. So this is all happening at our lowest economical point ever in our life. And we've learned something is that God is always at his best, even when we're at our worst. Right? Like his best has nothing to do with our worst. You could be at the worst moment of your life, your worst prayer life, your worst prayer moment, your worst anything moment, and God will always be at his best because he is that good. That's why we can continually fill our mouths with praises of his goodness, because his goodness doesn't stop even though I stop. His goodness doesn't stop even though I forget. Like he was always and he will always be good. How many are thankful for a great God? I know I am. So God is always at his best, even when I'm at my worst. Verse 5 in Psalms 34 says, they looked to him and were radiant, and their faces were not ashamed. This is David talking. It's like, hey guys, let's magnify the Lord. And then he makes this statement. He says, hey guys, when they looked to God, they were not ashamed. So one thing that was always like a battle in our life is like, we don't want to just go back to Colombia defeated, right? Like we don't want to be defeated by the dollar. We don't want to be defeated by these things. It's like, but we're going to believe God. And there's something I've learned. If you're able to believe God, you will never be ashamed. I've never heard of someone that said, I wish I would have prayed less, because it was just too much prayer. I never heard of someone that says, maybe I should have worshiped a little less. Maybe I should have, served a little less. I've never heard someone says, I took it too far. I was way too generous. God is always really good to us, right? And you will never be ashamed at going all out for God, being all in for the things that God has for you. You will never, ever be ashamed. And that has been our story in these days. We haven't been ashamed, and we tell people some of our stories, and I'll tell some more today, but It's just this battle that we have. If we're going to believe God for this is going to be big. If we're going to do it this way, and well, what happens if it doesn't work? And we're always reminded, but what happens when it does, right? What happens when God does come through as he always does? Because God will always be at his best, even when we're at our worst. So verse 6 says, this is David saying, hey, this poor man cried out, and the Lord heard him and saved him out of all his troubles. The angel of the Lord encamps all around those who fear him and delivers them. I'm so happy, that David exists. He's one of the first people I want to go meet in heaven, after Jesus, obviously. But it's David, because I feel like I can relate to him. I was like, he had problems. He wasn't perfect, He screwed up a bunch of times, and yet the Bible says that he was a man after God's own heart. That's my type of guy, right? He's imperfect, but he's still loved by a perfect God and highlighted by a perfect God. It's like that. I love that. And see, I don't think maybe everyone knows, but the reason why Carol Lee and me decided to come to the States was to itinerate and raise funds for missionaries. So we just didn't come to the States just because we wanted to live in the States, and eat more and have Taco Bell every day or stuff like that. It's amazing, but that's not why we're here. So what we did is we talked with a few missionaries, and we promised them that we were going to raise a certain amount of funds. So what we thought initially was the way we're going to raise these funds is, I'm just going to get invited to preach, and through the honorariums or through, these connections, we're just going to take from there and send it to the missionaries, and it's going to be great. And then something that we just didn't think was going to happen happened. I didn't get invited anywhere. It's the truth. In Colombia, I would get invited, every week to some place. It's because it's what I do. So I was like, it's going to probably be the same in the States. So we emailed 500 pastors or something. And some of them responded, but no one invited us. The only person that invited us was you guys. And so we were like, how are we going to do this? We had promised one missionary we were going to send him $15,000. We promised another missionary. So we started looking into banks. So we're going to take out a loan, but we're not going to fall back on our word. We're just going to do it, and we're going to see what happens. And so I was talking with God. I was like, God, I don't think I'm the greatest preacher ever, but am I really that bad? He said, no one, absolutely no one. And he didn't say yes or no, but he just said, just start I'm being honest. He never answered that question. He just ignored it. I wonder. But anyway, all he told me was hey, start texting your friends. I was like, okay. So we had a certain road trip that we had to go to. So we were there, and so I started texting friends that I knew. In every city that we were driving by, I was like, if I knew someone, I was like, hey, let me invite you to coffee. Let's just hang out. And then I started on Instagram, I started sending messages to everyone. Justin Bieber got messages. LeBron James got messages. If I heard you better believe Kanye West already got a message, right? I was like, maybe someone will respond. And so during this road trip, I started getting coffee with people. And I just said, I'm going to give it to God. I was like, God, this is why you're here. So this is why we're here. You sent us here. I don't know how you're going to do it, but this is going to happen. We started having coffees with people, just talking with people. And slowly but surely, we didn't even notice. But we started getting checks in the mail, checks through PayPal, checks through even Cash App, just in general. And we hadn't even counted what this was. But when we got back and we had to go to Venezuela, I will always remember, because I remember the exact number. Well, we had to pay a total of $5,740 for the whole thing in Venezuela to be able to feed 4,500 people. And so we were there, and we started just counting everything that had come in from the different coffee dates that we had. And what had come in was $5,500. So I was like, $240 from us is not that bad. I was like, it's better than the loans we thought we were going to take. So we were happy. And then at the end, I was like, let's just check PayPal again just to see. And when we checked PayPal, $240 had come in exact. So we were like, oh my gosh. Like, I mean, I never doubted, but you know, it's like, this is amazing. And then something even more incredible happened. As I said, you know, I started sending people on Instagram messages. So there was this guy that we knew, through Instagram. We had met him once. So we sent him a message. I was like, hey, we're going to go through this city. You know, we'd like to invite you to eat or anything. And he answered. And so I was like, ooh, I can't say who it was, just to, you know, like to keep, how do you say that? Just keep it private. But he answered us, and so I was like, hey, let us invite you to eat. So we were there, and like I was just excited to be with him. So we were like talking, and it like took us 2 hours of talking. And it was like, hey, you know, thank you for hanging out with us, and goodbye, right? And he was like, no, but wait, like, what are you guys doing? So I mean, we have to keep going. So we're like, well, I mean, you know, we're raising funds for missionaries, this and that. And so he's like, oh, tell me more about it. I was like, well, you know, we already got Venezuela. Now we have Ethiopia, and then I thought we were just, you know, just talking. So I was like, so this is my dream, that we can raise this amount of money so we can bless the missionary, and also send them on vacations, because they haven't had vacations in like 11 years. It's just, this is all we want to do. So he just looks at me and is like, all right, let's do it. I was like, dude, do what? Like, what? He's like, well, let's do it. Let's do that. I was like, no, I don't think I explained myself really well. But this is $25,000. Like, it's not, you know, it's just like, oh, like you can't cash app that, right? And he was like, no, let's do it. He's like, just text me the number. I was like, you don't even know me. Like I could text you a big number, right? But that was it. And so obviously, like, I'm super emotional, so I started crying right there. I was like, can I hug you? Like, is it okay to hug you? And he was like, yeah, you good. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I love you. But see, well, I don't think you like maybe understand this whole thing. But for all my life, I had spent like in my dad's ministry. I was the translator, so I got a lot of opportunities to translate for different great men of God. And, you know, I've translated for people that have been shot at and bullets were falling, right? I've translated for people that, you know, get jets from God and all these things. And just great men of God. But I had never been able to tell a testimony on my own, because I don't think I had ever really taken the step to completely just forget about everything and believe God. So to come to, this is why I'm reminded of David, because David said, hey, this poor man, like, it wasn't big, I wasn't this big guy, but it says this poor man cried out and the Lord heard him too. See, he's King David for a lot of us, but back then he was only, you know, the little David. He was the normal David. He was just, you know, David. And so for the longest time, that was who we were, you know, like, you know, John David and Carolina. I wasn't even the youth pastor anymore. And yet the Lord heard me. And I can still say today that the Lord is good. Come on, if he did it for John David, he can do it for you as well. Right? If he did it for poor David, he can do it for you as well. See, he's not changing. He's like, you got to be anointed for me to use you. You got to get a platform for me to use you. All you have to do is taste and see that the Lord is good. You have to take the step and actually say, I'm going to taste everything you have, and I will be able to see all that you can do. So I'm not translating tonight. I'm telling you from personal experience that this is awesome and that this is worth it. A life where you just believe God. And to be honest, like one of our pet peeves is we like to do budgets, and we haven't been able to budget for all these times because we don't know where it's going to come from. But at the same time, we know who's going to send it, right? It's God. So we're like, this is like an adventure for us. It's like, oh my gosh. And now we have other projects, and I don't even know how those are going to happen, but I know God is good, right? I've already tasted and seen. So for a moment, I didn't think I could eat hummus and avocado until I tasted it, right? For a moment, I didn't know that God could bless me the way he blesses these huge ministers, but until I decided to taste, then I could see that the Lord is good. I want to challenge you tonight to start tasting. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Psalm 34, verse 8 to verse 10, the Passion Translation. It doesn't say taste and see. It says something that I like from David. He says, drink deeply of the pleasures of this God Experience for yourself the joyous mercies he gives to all who turn to hide themselves in him. Verse number 9 says, worship in awe and wonder, all you who've been made holy. For all who fear him will feast with plenty. I just like that verse like on a personal level because I like to feast with plenty, right? But I think the first thing, there's like two concepts or two like points I want to leave tonight that you can apply for the rest of your life, hopefully. But the first one is drink deeply. That's what it says. If you're gonna drink of the things of God, it's not, you can't sip. Like just take a sip and be like, I don't know if it's good or not. It's like with coffee, it's like with everything. If you really want to taste it, you have to chug, right? Like if you really want to taste it, you have to drink deeply. You have to drink until it's like running around over your mouth. That's when you know it's good or not, right? When it's like there and it's like dripping, but you can't stop. Like God is asking us, it's like, hey, if you want to taste and see, you got to taste it with everything you have. See, it's not just about, I'm gonna sing to God. No. If you want to taste and see, you gotta deeply worship God. Like worship with an emphasis, worship with all you have. See, this is why David would say, I'm gonna bless the Lord, oh my soul, and all that is within me. I'm not just gonna sing to him, I'm gonna give him everything I have. Maybe everything you have is different from everything your neighbor has. I understand that the expression can be different, but it has to be all you have. If you're gonna, I don't know how you drink. Like in my house, we don't like how my dad drinks because like it's just weird the way he moves his mouth. But he drinks completely, and maybe my mom drinks differently. I don't like to touch the cup, so I'll drink with the cup. We all drink differently, but you can still drink deeply the way you drink. What I'm saying is sometimes we're like, yeah, but like I'm not gonna go for a run. God's not asking you to go for a run just because other people go for a run. God is asking you to drink deeply, the way you drink deeply. So I want to push you tonight. This is worth it. See, I'm not, God hasn't been good to me just because I'm John David Romick or something. God has been good to me because I have decided to taste and see for myself. It's not that I'm tired of hearing other people's testimonies, but I do want to live my own testimonies. It's great that it happens to other people, but what about me? What about what God has for my life? I will rejoice with you, of course, but I know God has special things in store for my life as well. So I'm going to taste and see for myself because I don't like just to hear the stories. I like to live the stories as well. So it says, drink deeply of the pleasures of this God. Experience for yourself. Remember, this is David. He's in the cave. Like nothing has really changed. But the only thing that's different is his perspective. He's like, I know we're in the cave, but guys, God's in the cave here as well. So like this cave is just temporary, but God will forever be God, right? So he's telling them, hey guys, experience for yourself how good God is. And you'll see heaven and earth can pass away, but his word will remain. So as long as you're standing in his word, all these problems will come and then they will go, right? And then the promises will come and the promises will go, but the word of God will remain no matter what. So it says, experience for yourself the joyous mercies he gives to all who turn to hide themselves in him. Then verse number 9 says, worship in awe and wonder, all you who've been made holy. For all who fear him will feast with plenty. And verse 10 it says, even the strong and the wealthy grow weak and hungry, but those who passionately pursue the Lord will never lack any good thing. I love that. I love when it says, you will not lack for any good thing. But it says how? When you passionately pursue God. So number one, I want to challenge you tonight to drink deeply. Just drink with all you have. Worship God with all you. It's not only about, I'm going to read the Bible. I'm going to do some deep reading. I'm going to dive into this book with all I have. I'm going to eat it up. It's not just I'm going to sing to God. I'm going to worship with all I have until I don't have a voice, but I'm going to give it my all. That's drinking deeply. Look at your neighbor and say, I'm going deep tonight. From now on, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it deeply with all I have. And then point number 2, passionately pursue God. See, it's not only about what you do, but it's how you do it that also affects the outcome. And there's a promise to this when we passionately pursue God. It says you will never lack any good thing. Now we don't pursue God because of what he can give us, but just know that that's what happens when you pursue God. He will give you anything you'll ever need. So this is David at his worst point. He still gave God his best worship because he knew God, he deserved it all no matter what. So I'm reminded of different moments in the past months where like what we were believing was contradicted with what we were living at the moment. But I've come to learn one thing, is that God will always be good. Always, consistently, constantly be good. So not only should we worship deeply, not only should we drink deeply and passionately pursue God, but he deserves our best worship. He deserves our best praise. He deserves all of what we are, all of what we have. He deserves it because he's already been that good. So I want to challenge you tonight. The first challenge is just, if you can stand, stand. And I want you guys to stand, and I want us to worship tonight. And it's sometimes hard, and you hear it a lot of times. If the music is right, then we do, and we should just worship without music. And I get it, but we're going to use music tonight. But I want us to worship God from a standpoint where we realize who he is, how good he is. And trust me, if I'm eating hummus and avocado dip, that's a miracle right there. The only reason why I'm there is because I decided to try it. So I want you to try it tonight. This is a great place to try these things, right? Worship God with all you have. So I'm going to ask you to stand. Please stand. I'm not going to lead worship or anything, obviously, because we want to passionately pursue God, right? What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pray. I'm just going to say this, what David said. Hey, you got to taste and see. To be able to see, you have to taste first. That's how the pattern goes. So you have to taste it. And the connotation of this taste is not just, take a little sip, dip a little bit, go all in. I mean, in order to get all of God, you have to be all in. You have to drink deeply, passionately pursue God. When it comes to the things of God, you have to do it with all your might. See, passion is the difference between, a good experience and not a great experience. I remember my mom, she would always tell us when we were kids, like, go clean your room. So sometimes we'd go with a bad attitude. And she's like, no, go clean your room with a good attitude. And I was like, it makes no difference. Like, I'm going to clean my room anyway. It's like, no, you change your attitude first. Like, clean up your attitude and then clean your room. But I understood that when I had a good attitude with it, it not only was I quicker, but I did things better. I just didn't hide my stuff under the bed and say it's clean. I actually did what I had to do. And so stop looking at your kids. That's weird. But I understand that now. Maybe it's just because I'm old now, but hey, I understand that's not only about what you do, but it's how you do it. So don't just worship God because that's what happens and you just lift your hands. No, to do it, try it with a good attitude. Try it with a good attitude and you'll see the difference. You'll see how good it really is when you drink deeply and two, passionately pursue God.